Welcome to This Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We're going to pull back the curtain on something we all interact with multiple times a day, yet we rarely stop to think about it. We're exploring the massive, hidden systems, literally an invisible shield, protecting our daily meals from some truly microscopic but absolutely formidable dangers. Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever actually wondered why the food you eat, day in and day out, rarely makes you sick? I mean, we completely take it for granted, right? But the reality is, our food is incredibly vulnerable. From the soil it grows in, all the way to the factory it's packaged in, food is constantly exposed to elements that could cause us serious harm. It takes a highly active, relentless system to keep that from happening. So to make sense of this massive web of legislation and microbiology, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the invisible threat. Second, what is food hygiene? Third, the farm-to-fork shield. Fourth, good hygiene practices. And finally, the future of food safety. All right, starting off with Section 1, the invisible threat, microscopic dangers. Just think about the sheer variety of threats our food actually faces out there. These hazards basically fall into three main buckets. First up, biological hazards. We're talking about bacteria like Campylobacter, which causes nasty gastroenteritis, or Clostridium botulinum, which, believe it or not, produces the most potent natural neurotoxin known to humanity. Yikes, right? Then we have chemical hazards. And this isn't just about farm pesticides. It includes environmental contaminants like dioxins, and even stuff like acrylamide that's naturally produced during the food processing itself. Finally, we've got physical hazards. And honestly, this is straight up nightmare fuel. Glass, metal shavings from machinery, loose nuts, or the terrifying reality of stapler bullets accidentally falling into the packaging? No thank you. Moving right along to Section 2, what is food hygiene? Systematic solutions. Okay, so now that we know what the threats are, let's clearly define our core problem here. Contamination. It's simply the introduction or occurrence of a contaminant in food or the food environment. So the key takeaway is that a contaminant is literally anything, whether that's a biological agent, chemical runoff, or just some random foreign matter that is not intentionally added to our food and that ultimately compromises its safety or suitability for us to eat. To fight off all that contamination, governments have to put massive legal frameworks into place. Take the Food Hygiene Regulations 2009, for example. The core objectives here aren't just dry legalese. They're active, living blueprints. They mandate everything from the physical design of hygienic premises and making sure equipment is actually cleanable, right down to the strict personal hygiene of the food handlers themselves. It's this exact legislation that forces the food industry to create mandatory safety assurance programs. And that brings us to what is arguably one of the most important acronyms in the entire industry, HACCP. That stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. It's this absolutely vital system that identifies, evaluates, and controls hazards that are significant for food safety. Now, what makes HACPs so revolutionary is that it shifts the whole industry away from just testing the final product and reacting to a breakout toward actively anticipating where a hazard might pop up on the assembly line and neutralizing it before it ever happens. It's a real game changer. Which brings us to Section 3, the farm-to-fork shield, a continuous defense. But before we get too deep into modern systems, let's take a super quick historical detour, because the evolution of food safety is actually fascinating. Back in the early 1800s, innovators like Appert and Durand developed canning methods to preserve food using heat treatment. And get this, they did it before humanity even knew what microorganisms were. It wasn't until the 1860s that Louis Pasteur proved the link between microorganisms and spoilage, which really laid the scientific foundation for food hygiene. That breakthrough led to the very first pasteurization of wine in 1867, and eventually milk in 1890. So we've literally been building this shield for centuries. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive ecosystem we're working with today. Listen, food safety is absolutely not a one-person job. It requires the flawless collaboration of competent authorities laying down the law, operators like your growers, animal feed producers, transporters, and retailers, all working alongside service providers who manufacture the processing equipment, the packaging, and even the sanitizing chemicals. Every single link in this chain has to do its job perfectly, where the entire farm-to-fork shield completely collapses. All right, let's look at the day-to-day operations in Section 4. Good hygiene practices, or GHP, day-to-day defenses. Let's see exactly how this builds a rock-solid foundation. Good hygiene practices follow a really clear step-by-step logic. It all begins at primary production. That means controlling soil and water at the farm to prevent fecal or chemical contamination right at the source. Next up is establishment design. Factories literally have to be built with materials that are durable and, crucially, easy to take apart and clean. Then we move to the control of operations. This includes meticulously tracking the time and temperature of the products to stop bacterial growth in its tracks. And finally, you have rigorous maintenance and sanitation programs to eradicate pests and clean up built-up waste. But here's the catch. Even with perfect factory design, human behavior is by far the most unpredictable variable in food safety. And that is exactly why GHP mandates incredibly strict personal behavior controls. We are talking about rigidly monitoring staff for communicable diseases or even just tiny cuts on their hands. It requires specialized protective clothing and absolute non-negotiable bans on smoking, spitting, or chewing anywhere near the food. Even visitors have to follow strict safety and protective covering rules to prevent any cross-contamination. You really can't leave anything to chance. And that leads us into our final stretch, Section 5, the future of food safety, microscopic threats. Now, the somewhat unsettling truth is that traditional controls are really starting to struggle with modern microbial issues. Today, we're dealing with brand new hazards like antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Add to that the sheer massive scale of global trade, plus socioeconomic changes like overcrowding, and well, a localized contamination can become a global crisis practically overnight. Furthermore, the exact effectiveness of some of our traditional hygiene measures, like general cleaning and hand washing, is surprisingly unquantifiable when tested against these new superbugs. Traditional methods alone, they just simply aren't enough anymore. So to fight these modern hazards, the food industry is looking toward a truly exciting new frontier. Enter the nanotechnology era. Scientists are no longer just cleaning surfaces, they are actually engineering inherently hygienic processes down at the atomic level. I know, these nanotechnology applications sound like pure science fiction, but they are absolutely becoming a reality. We're seeing the development of nanotech coatings that actively prevent bacteria from ever attaching to surfaces in the first place. It's essentially creating self-cleaning windows and tiles in factories. There's also the use of photocatalytic oxidation technology. This atomic-level process can literally oxidize pollutants and kill bacteria, making it an incredibly powerful tool for water treatment and air purification systems inside food processing plants. We're talking about eradicating unseen pathogens before they can even settle. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought to ponder. What will the future of our food supply look like when we fight invisible threats at the atomic level? From Louis Pasteur discovering microbes in the 1800s to scientists engineering self-cleaning nanotech walls today, our invisible shield is constantly, brilliantly evolving. I really hope this explainer has transformed how you look at the food on your plate and sparked your curiosity to learn more about the incredible science that's working 24/7 to keep you safe. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and keep questioning the world around you.